morning. This is Miss Lee, and today we're going to be talking about depreciation in Business Math B. Depreciation is covered in your Project 5 and the chapters prior. So it would be between chapter lessons 21 through 25. Okay? I put an old car on the front here because when we think of depreciation, we think of something that's been used for several years and it's losing its value. And as you know, all the businesses have some type of equipment or supplies, and they eventually wear or become old from use. Since equipment and supplies are considered assets, when it wears down and becomes old, we call it depreciation, and this lowers the asset value. The definition of depreciation is a reduction in the value of an asset with the passage of time, due in particular to wear and tear. Now, you'll find that sometimes when people are describing depreciation, they say it's not so much the wear and tear of it as it is, every 3 years you upgrade a computer. So what you paid for it, you need to write that much off in 3 years. So it's not as closely correlated to the wear and tear as it is when it needs to be replaced. So it's kind of different philosophies. I'm going to go over a few examples in your Project 5. So you're welcome to take notes. And again, this link will be posted today, so you can go back and refer to it if you want. But in Project 5, we're going to be on the second page, line 3. And remember, there's a couple of different ways you can depreciate things. You can just take the number of years that the product's going to be good for, or the equipment, and divide it by that number of years and mark off the same amount every year. Okay? That's called the straight line method. So the depreciation would be the same amount every year. So the depreciation for a straight line is that there's a consistent amount depreciated each year. And the cumulative depreciation is going to be the total of all those depreciated amounts. Okay, so if you're taking 10,000 off depreciation, then the first year you've only accumulated, the cumulative is 10,000. The second year, the cumulative would be 20,000. So you go back to calculate the book value. The book value is actually going to be the original cost, what you paid for it, minus the cumulative. Okay, so that's what the new value is of the item that you bought. So you don't want to just subtract 1 year, you want to subtract however much has accumulated. So at $10,000 in 3 years, you would have had a cumulative depreciation of $30,000. And if you paid $60,000 for it, then $60,000 minus the cumulative $30,000 would equal another $30,000. The example that they have in your project is, this would be on line 3. The original cost is $70,000. And at that point, the cumulative amount after 3 years is $36,000. And when you subtract that, the book value is $34,000. Okay? Sometimes when you look at these projects and you open them up, there's so much information on one page and so many numbers in all these spreadsheets. It's natural for us to kind of have an emotional reaction to that and say, oh my God, what is all this stuff? But you can see from this one problem here how easy this is to fill in. Okay. And I think the other thing is we've been trained in math, we do one problem, 5 steps in a row, you know, so this math is a little bit different. Okay, on the same project 5, same page 2, we're going to look at line 3 again. But this time we're going to look at the macros depreciation. Now remember, this one's a little bit different in that you take an annual percentage to take off, and then you take the original cost and multiply it by that percent. Again, cumulative depreciation is the same. You just add all of the depreciation amounts together, and the book value is the same. It's going to be original cost minus cumulative depreciation. So same exact problem. In this one, we're going to look at the line 3 in this one. As you can see, they started with 70,000 and they had a fixed percent of 19.20%. Remember, we moved the decimal twice to the left. So when you multiply those, the actual depreciation would be 13,440. And then if we were to solve the book value, we would take the 670,000 again and subtract the accumulated depreciation. And that part's actually filled in for us. So it's 70,000 minus 49,840, and that equals 20,160. Okay, one thing I wanted you to think about is when you're in business, you're constantly thinking of ways to increase your income and decrease your expenses. Can you think of some ideas of how you would increase your income or decrease your expenses? Yes, that's good. You could cut some of your operating costs by cutting your utilities. You could also lower staff hours. You could actually change your hours of operation, right? Those are great ideas. Well, we learned in the last project that one of the ways you can increase your income is by looking at that break-even point and making sure that your pricing and your discounts brought in the income that you wanted, right? So you could increase your income by increasing your price point to fit the supply and demand. Um, so in this chapter, one of the things you need to know about depreciation is, whatever you show as income on your business, you have to pay taxes on that. And that can make a big difference, okay? So with that being said, if you have high expenses, you take your income minus your expenses, and that gives you your net income that you pay your taxes on. You can actually lower your net income by having more expenses. So with depreciation, what you can actually do is you could fluctuate your depreciation amount kind of dependent on your business. So if you're having a really good business year with really high income, you don't want to pay taxes on all that because you're in a higher income bracket. So what you can do is lower or you can raise your depreciation amount percentage with the macros. So you can raise that amount that you're writing off and subtract that as a loss. Okay, and that's what business people do. Um, Interestingly, in other countries, businesses are regulated more, so you're actually not able to fluctuate as much as you can here in the United States. Some countries actually do not allow the macros thing where you can fluctuate and choose what percentage you're going to depreciate something. So that's kind of a little interesting tip. So, and if you have a business with low income for the year, and you're not going to pay much taxes, then you may not want to depreciate off as much that year. So the advantage to the macros is that you have more flexibility in changing your depreciation amount. Okay. The advantage of the straight line is that it's just very, very simplified. You just do the same thing every year. So it's not like you really have to have a professional accountant to do that. You can just write off the percent every year. You know, that's a good question, Taylor. You ask what's considered a median income. If you have a median income, then you can kind of decide yourself, is this the year that I want to pay a little bit more taxes? Um, it's kind of up to you. Most of the time, businesses are always looking to cut their taxes. But you know, you can't depreciate, if an item's only worth $70,000, you can't depreciate it forever. You can only depreciate it up to the amount it's worth. And so, you know, if you use all that, you expense off $60,000 so that you have no taxes, then the next year you won't have any amount to depreciate off. So it's pretty much your choice as a business owner how much you want to expense off. The macros just allows you to pick and choose which one, the amount you want to, you know, depreciate that year. And you could see from your project 5, page 2, that the percent amounts fluctuate from 5% to 32%, which is a pretty big difference. A difference of writing off 32% was $22,000 or writing off $4,000. So this is just something interesting to know about if you're going to have a business when you buy your equipment to be prepared to set this up with depreciation, okay? So I've included these short video clips, and I actually looked through a lot of video clips to find the ones that I think are best. I try to choose ones that are 3 to 7 minutes long. So feel free to go through these. I try to choose something that's actually presented by someone that's either well known or respected, someone from another country for a different perspective, and someone that's in college or high school student presenting the topic. And then lastly, I try to find one that's either like a cartoon or a humor or a song, something that's interesting. So these are great to view, and they really do help you understand a little bit more about depreciation in business. So I like this real open view here. When you're in business, if you know all these little teeny nuances that we're learning, you really can save yourself taxes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 10% of what you make for the whole year. That's a lot of money. You know, let's just say 10% of $20,000 is $2,000. 10% of 40,000, 4,000. You could buy a car for $4,000. So this could really help you when you're in your business. Okay. Now, don't forget if you're watching this live, when I stop the recording, I'm going to go ahead and give you a poll. And once you answer the poll, then I will mark you down for participation. If you're watching this as a recorded link, You will need to complete these 5 questions. All of this information and this link and all the other links for the class are listed in your announcements under participation announcement. Make sure that you email me the PDF file that's listed in the announcements, okay? I have some students who are actually typing this out. You don't need to type this out. Just open up that red link and save it, download it to your computer, and you can type in it, okay? And also don't forget here on the Adobe board, when you come to Adobe, all the projects and the formulas that are used for the projects are listed here. You can view them at any time. They are in the upper right corner. If you want to see them, just let me know. I have to move you from participant to a presenter so that you have access to the board. And then also down here on the bottom left, you can actually download this exact document onto your own computer, Business Math B projects, for your use, okay? Well, thank you for joining us today for Business Math B, the presentation on depreciation. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great week. Give me a call or a message if you have any questions about your project.